All right, so today we're going to talk about hashes. It's a new way of looking, it's a new data structure. A data structure is a computer sciencey term that lets you structure data. It's a way of entering data into the computer so that I can pull it out easily, that I can make it all nice and neat, put it in the right shelves, whatever you think about. We're structuring data so that we can access it. Databases do that for us, for instance, with columns and rows, things like that. An array was, I like to think of, was a single column Excel spreadsheet, right? So that every cell in this has an address. So this is array A at position 1. I could put in the word Dave, right? And let's make these all, it's too small, it keeps jumping. So, and I can put 1 in here, and I can put all kinds of stuff in here. So this is an array. There we go. This is an array. It has a single column, and it has an addressing scheme that lets me look up an element in the array, right? A sub 3 gives me the number 2. A sub 1 gives me the string Dave. So a hash is a more general version of an array. You could think of it that way, in that it has 2 columns. All right? So a hash has 2 columns that I can play with. Let me bring this over here. And I have, this is what we call the key, and this is the value. All right? Every hash has a key column and a value column. And the key column is the index into the hash. So my whole hash is called hash up here to look up the value associated with the hash index 2. This might have Dave in it here. And I might have a key of Dave and a value of Jones. The key values that I have in the hash, I can have numbers, objects, arrays, anything I want as a key, and anything I want as a value. So I've got 2 columns that I can fill in. Okay? So the hash, so think of it in terms of 2-column Excel spreadsheet. So let's go build a hash. I can call it names. And a hash is created, instead of square brackets, to create it, I use curly braces, all right? So in my curly braces, I have a key. You have to think of a key points to a value. So whatever's on the left hand, they call this a hash rocket. This is a Ruby notation to denote that this is the key part and this is the value part. And I'd specify those just by going through and defining every cell. So the key can be anything. I can put Dave here. And the value might be my last name, Jones. And the key might be Joe. And my value might be Stromboli. And my key might be Mary, and my last name of Mary is, what, Park? Mary Parker. There we go. All right, so we've got a hash now defined between the curly braces with a key value pair for every cell, every location in the hash. Does everybody understand the creation of a hash so far? That's if we were going to hard code this names hash. So my name has 2 columns in it. An Excel spreadsheet, I've got the key part and the value part. In order to look up data from this data structure, from this hash, I have to index it just like I did an array. An array, I did A sub 1, right? And that gave me the first element, or actually the second element in the array. Here, I would do the same thing, but I might say names sub and then the name of the key that I want to get out. So if I say puts name sub Dave, what do you think that's going to print? Jones, the value associated with that key. The value associated with that key. So let's run this just because I know you don't believe me. Let's see. So it prints out Jones. Isn't that cool? So if I were to print out names sub Mary, what is it going to print out? Parker, all right? So we run it. I got Jones and Parker. So it looks the same as an array when I look at it, when I'm getting the data out of the hash, when I'm trying to retrieve that data. I index it using the square brackets. But when I create it using the curly braces. All right? So names is what type of data structure? It's a hash containing a bunch of stuff. So if I were to look at the hash at the class of this, which is important next quarter, if I look at the class, that's going to print out the hash class. Okay? So my names comes from the hash class, so I can do hashy type stuff with it. And it has a bunch of methods associated with the hash, just like the array had a bunch of methods associated, like the reverse and the sort and all that kind of stuff. And the string has stringy stuff I can do, like ljust and rjust and reverse and upcase and all those kind of things, all those methods associated with it. Okay, so let's define another one to get you, I don't know if this will confuse you or not, but I can have numbers as an array, as a hash as well. And if I put just numbers like this, what would happen if I printed out numbers sub 0? I'm going to get the value of that as a Dave. So in reality, this numbers here is identical to creating, oops, I don't need that puts there. This would be identical to creating an array with the same values in here. Dave, Jones, Joe. These would be identical in how you access them. If I printed out number sub 0 here and number sub 0 here before I converted it into an array, I'm going to get Dave both times. So this array is like a simplified version of a hash that uses numbers for the key. Okay, if you think of an array like a hash, where the key is always an ordered number of 0 through whatever number of elements we have. Does that make sense? I don't think so. I'm not getting the nods here. An array is identical to a hash if the keys are always just numbers. If they're always numbers in the key column, then that's just a hash. I mean, just an array. Sorry, boy, I'm confusing myself now. All right, I just wanted to show that to you. In most cases, the hash is more general. I can have strings as the key, or numbers as the key, or arrays as the key. It doesn't matter. And I can have anything I want as the value. So it works perfect for web applications and things when we do key value pairs. All right, so let's take away my numbers here, and let's do some things like, how would I go about printing out the values of my names hash? Okay, if I have a hash with a bunch of them in there, how can I loop through all of them and print out the value of each element. Okay? So there is no way, I can't say, if I take away my numbers here, because that's going to confuse you. And I'm back to my names hash. I can't do a while loop like this. While count less than hash dot length, do puts hash sub count, right? Because what is count? All right, here's our simple loop, right? It's a number. So is that going to work? My key is a string, so it doesn't work, right? So I'm going to crash. It says undefined method length. Well, that's one thing. I don't even know if that's going to work either. There we go. Size. I'm printing out the hash sub count, which is hash sub 0, hash sub 1. That's interesting. Right? So I can't index these by 0 and 1 and 2. That doesn't make sense. So I have to use an each method. So I'm going to use hash.each, not hash. I'm going to say names, the name of my hash, names.each, do, and then I have some goalposts. And since a hash has two different columns, I need two different variables to look at all of the information at the same time. So inside my goalposts, I'm going to have, I like to use the words key and value, but we can use anything we want. I could use first and last because that corresponds to the names, right? First and last name. And each time through this loop now, it's going to give me a new first. It's going to stuff Dave into first. It's going to stuff Jones into last. And I can do something with those two variables. Then the next time through the loop, it's going to give me Joe and Stromboli. And I can do something with those. So inside this loop, I could just say puts first, put a little space, and last. Because these are going to have new variables every time through the loop. There we go. So given that hash, I can print out the key and the value at the same time. The key is the first one, is the first name, and the value is the last name. Okay? Does that make sense? That's how we loop through hashes. We don't do a while loop anymore because it's too complicated to figure out what the key is. We let Ruby figure it out for us and fill in these variables, and then I can do whatever I want with the variables. Okay? Any questions on that? Did you guys do some of this in your code Academy? So you already know how to do this, so you're way ahead. All memorized and ready to go. All right, let's look at the API for the hashes, the documentation for hashes. We can look down here at hash. Where's hash? You gotta be kidding me. Yeah, I suppose I could. I don't know where. It doesn't look like it's alphabetical. All right, so I've got lots of methods I can do. These are three different ways I can loop through the hash. If I only want to look at the keys, I can say each key. If I only want to look at the values, I can look at each value. So let's just write that one real fast. If I only want to look at the keys, it doesn't make sense to do each key. That's looking at each key, which is going to give me what from this hash up here. Which column? My first names, right? Well, I already kind of wrote it for you, so there you go. So I'm going to get all the Daves. It just didn't make sense to write this. If I'm only going to use the keys, then you can use each key. If I'm only going to use the values, what would this give me back? The last names, right? Doesn't matter what my variable name is. It's going to give me my last names. So I've got Jones, Stromboli, and Parker. All right? Are we with me? Any questions? If I do like this, well, I wouldn't have access to this. That would be a problem. So let's run it and see what happens. Can't convert string into an array. So the problem is that it gives me back an array containing the two values, a key and a value. So if I just look at, what type of data this is, class is going to be an array. Where did it go? Mary. Hash. It's not working the way I expected. Yeah, it's not printing anything. Well, why is it not printing anything? Hello, I'm not putting a puts out, right? Jeez. Oh, my God. That's terrible. So, jeez. Have you done that before? I do that all the time. Man, why is this thing not working? What the heck? All right, so it printed out 3 arrays. The first value actually comes up with an array containing the string Dave and the string Jones. So that might be a useful thing for you if you're doing that. But that's the value of first. First becomes an array containing those 2 values. Question? Yep.
So RubyMine highlights the keys in your hash program. It actually recommends using symbols instead of...
Oh, yeah. Oh, if I look at this. Yeah. That's a style.
What's the advantages?
Well, we haven't got to symbols yet. Symbol, unless you've done it in Code Academy. I haven't looked at the last ones. A symbol is like a constant string. And it doesn't allocate memory for every time you use that string. So it's more efficient in terms of speed and memory usage. So a symbol is just this, something like this. Dave, that's a symbol. And it doesn't have any meaning except for the name itself. And so we haven't got to that. That'll be maybe next quarter we'll do symbols. So for now, you can ignore that warning. It's just a style. In Rails, we will use symbols all over the place. So we'll get to that later.
Well, hey Dave, not to change the subject, but why does everybody get so excited about Ruby Rails on second version of this?
About Rails? All right, I'll answer that question in a minute. You had another question?
I just figured out that you can actually store stuff like math equations in hashes.
Sure.
Which is kind of cool because you can run them, you can just select it and run it.
Yep. Yeah, you can do it. They're really powerful, really cool stuff you can do with that. So why Rails? Why are we even doing Ruby? So in the first class I talked about Ruby was important to learn how to program. And it's object-oriented, so you're learning object-oriented programming. I could do this by teaching you Java or C# or Ruby or Python. I could teach you this using any language, right? So the reason we choose Ruby is that it's very easy to read English-wise. It makes sense. I mean, you can kind of read this and figure out what it's doing. Give me each of the names one at a time and print it out to the screen. It's very simple to read, very simple to write. It runs on every platform because it's a scripted language. So that's why Ruby to start with. the killer app for Ruby is the Rails platform. Rails is a web development platform that lets us build dynamically driven websites that are tied to databases very quickly. I can create websites really fast with that. So I can, if you guys are interested in that, if that will excite you a little more, I'll build one here. I'll build you a blog in just a few minutes and show you how fast it is to do that. So any other questions? I'll do that after I finish the recording. So any other questions on this?
I have an almost off-topic question.
Almost off topic, okay.
You have a bunch of extra credit assignments on here that was for last year, but they're still on here, but they're considered undated assignments. What's that all about?
In Canvas, you mean?
Yes, sir.
In Canvas, yeah, there's 4 extra credits. You can do them up until like the last week of school. I haven't set a date on those, and they're just free extra credit class. Extra credit. You can do them at any time and turn them in.
You know what the quizzes and all that stuff is also on?
No, quiz is not extra credit. Quiz is going to be next Wednesday for pre-reg day. So, all right. Any other questions about hashes? Since Stephen got us way off topic, I'll stop and show you a quick Rails, because I do think it's important for you to see where you're going eventually, right? Why you're doing all this Ruby garbage, right? So let's stop this.